Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. When somebody starts messing with your emotions, it's like they've found the remote control to your heart and they think they can flip the channels whenever they want. But here's the truth. That remote only works if you've handed them the batteries. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to give them the batteries. Ladies and gentlemen, the very first step to outsmarting a man who's messing with your emotions is recognizing the game he's playing. You can't win at a game you don't even realize you're in. And the tricky part is, these games aren't always loud and obvious. They don't always come with flashing lights or a warning sign. Sometimes they're wrapped in charm, smiles, and just enough attention to keep you hooked. A man who's manipulating your emotions isn't going to come out and announce it. He's going to work subtly, keeping you off balance so you're never quite sure where you stand with him. That uncertainty, that's part of the strategy. It might look like this. One day he's giving you all the attention in the world. He's calling, texting, making you feel like you're the most important person in his life. Then suddenly he pulls back. The calls stop, the energy changes, you're left wondering if you did something wrong, replaying every word and action in your head, trying to figure it out. That's the emotional roller coaster he wants you on, because when you're busy guessing, you're not thinking clearly. Recognizing this pattern is crucial. You have to be able to look at what's happening and say, wait a minute, this isn't about me doing something wrong. This is about him controlling the emotional temperature. Once you see that, you take back some of the power. You stop personalizing his shifts in behavior and start seeing them for what they are. Moves in the game designed to keep you invested on his terms. The danger in not recognizing the game is that you start adjusting yourself to fit his inconsistency. You find yourself walking on eggshells, trying to keep him in the good mood version of himself. You bend over backwards to avoid the cold, distant version, and in doing so, you lose sight of your own needs and worth. That's exactly where he wants you. Focus on pleasing him instead of asking if he's even meeting your standards. To recognize the game, you have to step outside of it for a moment. Look at his actions over time, not just in the moment. Consistency is the clearest indicator of genuine intent. Anyone can be sweet, attentive, and charming for a few days or weeks, but a man who's truly invested will show that same energy over the long haul. If you see a pattern of highs followed by unexplained lows, that's not romance, that's manipulation. Another thing to watch for is how he responds when you don't play along. If you stop reacting to his pull and push tactics, does he get frustrated? Does he try to provoke you in other ways just to get a response? That's a clear sign that emotional control is his real goal. And when you see it, you can decide not to give him the reaction he's fishing for. Recognizing the game doesn't mean you have to call it out immediately. Sometimes the smartest move is just to take mental notes. The more you understand his patterns, the less power they have over you. You can predict when he's going to pull back, when he's going to come in close again, and you can decide in advance how you'll respond. That way, you're not reacting on impulse, you're responding with intention. When you finally see the game for what it is, you also see the truth that your value has nothing to do with how much attention he gives you in any given moment. You stop measuring your worth by his moods. And that right there is how you start to win. Because the moment you understand the rules, you can decide whether you even want to keep playing. And sometimes the smartest way to outsmart someone isn't to beat them at their own game. is to step away from the board entirely. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. The first thing you need to understand about a man who's messing with your emotions is that he's not always going to make it obvious. He's not going to walk in the door wearing a sign that says, "Hey, I'm here to play games." No, it's way smoother than that. He might come in with a smile that feels like sunshine, words that sound like poetry, and a charm that makes you feel like you're the only one in the room. But under all that sugar, there's strategy. He knows if he can keep your emotions swinging like a pendulum, he can keep you exactly where he wants you. Distracted and unsure. Recognizing that pattern is step one. You can't beat a game you don't even know you're playing. You've got to pay attention to the little things, the times when he builds you up, then suddenly goes cold. The moments when he's giving you all this energy and attention, and then just as quick, he's distant, leaving you wondering what you did wrong. That's not an accident. That's a tactic. See, if he can keep you guessing, he can keep you chasing. But here's the truth. The second you recognize that it's a pattern, not a personal flaw in you, the second you see it's deliberate and not about your worth, you take back control. Now, once you've recognized the game, the next move is controlling your emotions. This is where most people get tripped up, because when someone pulls at your heart, your natural instinct is to react. He disappears for a day and you start blowing up his phone. He says something that hits a nerve and you snap back with all that pent-up frustration. But here's the thing. Emotional reactions are exactly what he's fishing for. That's the bait. He knows if you're reacting, you're distracted. And if you're distracted, you're not thinking clearly. So you've got to flip it. Instead of reacting immediately, take a step back, breathe, ask yourself, what's the smartest response here? Not the loudest, not the fastest, the smartest. If he pulls away, don't chase. If he throws a little shade, don't let it ruin your day. When you keep your cool, you take away his power to control your mood. And believe me, nothing throws a manipulator off their game faster than realizing they can't get a rise out of you. When you respond with logic instead of emotion, you change the whole dynamic. You're no longer the one getting pulled along. You're the one steering the ship. You're showing him that you are not here to be toyed with, that you won't dance to the rhythm he's trying to set. And here's the beauty of it. When you don't give him the reaction he's expecting, he's forced to adjust. He's got to rethink his approach. And in that space, you gain the upper hand. See, controlling your emotions isn't about being cold or shutting down your feelings. It's about making sure those feelings aren't being used against you. It's about knowing that not every situation deserves your energy, and not every person has earned the right to see you vulnerable. You protect your peace by choosing when and how you respond, instead of letting someone else dictate that for you. So ladies and gentlemen, when you recognize the game and you control your emotions, you're not just surviving, you're outsmarting. You're letting him know you're not the type to be manipulated. You're the type to be respected. And the moment you send that message, everything changes, because you're no longer the one being played. You're the one calling the shots. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. When a man is messing with your emotions, one of his favorite moves is controlling the pace of the relationship. Now, he might not come out and say it, but watch closely and you'll see it. One day he's all in, texting you first thing in the morning, making plans for the weekend, telling you how amazing you are. Then the next day is radio silence. You're left sitting there wondering, what happened? Did I say something? Did I do something wrong? But see, that's exactly how he wants you to feel. That stop and go, that emotional whiplash is a tactic. If he's the one controlling the speed, then he's the one controlling your focus. And here's the problem. When you let somebody else set the pace, you start dancing to their beat instead of your own. You get pulled into a rhythm where you're waiting on his moves before you make yours. You end up adjusting your whole mood based on his availability. That's dangerous territory because it puts him in the driver's seat of your emotional state. And believe me, if someone is already playing with your emotions, that's the last place you want them to be. So here's the key. You've got to take back control of the tempo. If he speeds things up, don't feel pressured to match his energy right away. If he slows down, don't rush to fill the gap with your effort. You set the rhythm that works for you. Maybe that means taking your time to reply. Maybe that means not rearranging your schedule every time he pops up with a last-minute plan. When you control the pace, you're telling him, I'm not here to be pulled along. If you want to move with me, you've got to respect my speed. And let me be clear, this isn't about playing games back. It's about protecting your balance. Because when you control the pace, you give yourself space to think. You stop reacting out of fear of losing him and start responding from a place of self-respect. That space is powerful because it allows you to see things clearly instead of through the fog of emotional highs and lows. Now, some men won't like this shift. They used to calling the shots. So when you stop following their lead, they might test you even more. They might try to guilt trip you, make you feel like you pulling away or question your commitment. But here's where you got to stand firm. If the only way a relationship works is when you letting them set all the terms, that's not a partnership. That's a power play, and you didn't sign up to be someone's puppet. Taking control of the pace also means knowing when not to rush your own emotions. Just because someone is pushing for more attention, more time, or more commitment doesn't mean you owe it to them on their schedule. You have every right to slow down, to assess, to make sure their actions match their words over time. Because consistency is a far better sign of real intention than intensity that burns hot one day and cold the next. And here's the beauty of it. When you set the pace, you filter out the people who aren't serious. A man who's genuinely interested will adjust to your rhythm. He won't mind giving you the time and space you need because he's not just chasing a reaction, he's investing in something real. But the ones who are only in it for the control, they'll fall off quick because without the ability to push and pull your emotions, they've got nothing to stand on. So ladies and gentlemen, remember this. You don't have to run to keep up with someone, and you don't have to stop just because they did. Your life, your energy, and your heart all move to a beat that's yours to protect. When you take ownership of that rhythm, you take ownership of your peace. And in the end, peace is something no one should be able to play with. Ladies and gentlemen, when a man is messing with your emotions, one of the smartest things you can do is set clear boundaries and stick to them. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are guidelines that show people how to treat you. The problem is when someone is testing you, they will push those boundaries just to see how far they can go. They might start small, maybe showing up late without apology or making little comments that don't sit right with you. At first, you might let it slide, thinking it's not worth the fight. But here's the truth. Every time you let it slide, you're silently telling them it's okay. And once they know you won't enforce your limits, they'll keep pushing a little more each time. See, a man who's trying to manipulate you doesn't want you to have strong boundaries. He wants you to be flexible because flexibility makes it easier for him to get away with things. If he knows he can cross a line and you'll forgive him without consequences, then your no doesn't really mean no, and your I don't like that doesn't carry any weight. And before you know it, you're in a place where you're accepting behavior you swore you never would just because the lines have been blurred. That's why setting boundaries isn't enough. You've got to stand by them. If you say you need honesty, then dishonesty can't be ignored. If you say you won't tolerate disrespect, then you can't excuse it away just because he had a bad day. Boundaries have to be backed by action or they're just suggestions. And a manipulator will always test to see if they're real. Now, I know some people think enforcing boundaries makes you difficult or hard to deal with, but the truth is, boundaries don't push the right people away. They push the wrong people away. The people who value you will respect your limits. They won't see them as a challenge to overcome, but as a standard to meet. And if someone gets upset because you're protecting your peace, that's a sign they were benefiting from you not having boundaries in the first place. When you stick to your boundaries, you also send a message that you value yourself. You're showing that your time, your energy, and your emotions are not free for the taking. You're not just handing out access to your heart without accountability. And here's the thing. People treat you based on what you allow. If you allow repeated disrespect, you'll keep getting it. If you require respect and consistency, those who can't provide it will either step up or step out. Setting boundaries also gives you clarity. When you have clear lines, you can tell immediately when someone's actions don't align with your standards. You don't have to waste time second guessing or making excuses for their behavior because you already know what you will and won't accept. And clarity is power because it stops you from being pulled into the emotional confusion a manipulator thrives on. Now, will holding firm on your boundaries be easy? No. There will be moments when you're tempted to bend them just to keep the peace. There will be times when your feelings for someone make you want to overlook their behavior. But remember, temporary comfort from letting a boundary slide often leads to long-term pain. And the longer you ignore your own rules, the harder it becomes to get back to them. So when a man tries to play with your emotions, make sure he knows exactly where the line is and that crossing it has consequences. Because at the end of the day, boundaries aren't just about controlling how other people treat you. They're about honoring yourself enough to demand the kind of treatment you deserve. And once you stand on that truth, you'll find it's a lot harder for anyone to manipulate your heart. Ladies and gentlemen, when a man is messing with your emotions, one of the most powerful tools you can use is observation. Not talking, not confronting right away, just watching. See, people can tell you anything they want. Words are cheap, but their actions, their patterns, those don't lie. When you take the time to step back and simply pay attention, you'll start to see the truth in a way you can't if you're caught up in reacting. Observation is about being present enough to notice the small details most people overlook. How does he treat you when no one's watching? Does he keep the same energy when you're not giving him attention? Does his kindness only show up when he wants something from you? A man who's playing with your emotions will often be inconsistent. And that inconsistency becomes clear when you stop filling in the gaps with excuses. The thing is, when we care about someone, we tend to explain away their behavior. He cancels plans. He must be busy. He takes days to text back. Maybe his phone died. But when you're observing instead of excusing, you start to notice the pattern, and patterns tell the truth. If something keeps happening over and over, it's not an accident. It's a choice. Observation also means watching how he treats others. A man's true character isn't just in how he treats you when he's trying to impress you. It's in how he treats people he doesn't have to be nice to. Is he respectful to strangers? Does he show gratitude when someone helps him, or does his charm turn off the second he's not getting what he wants? These are signs that tell you if his good behavior is genuine or just part of the performance. When you make observation a habit, you put yourself in a position of strength. You're no longer reacting emotionally to every little thing because you're gathering information instead. And the more information you have, the better decisions you can make. You stop asking, why would he do that? And start saying, I see exactly who he is. That clarity is what prevents you from falling deeper into the trap. Now, here's the tricky part. When you're observing, you've got to be patient. You can't always get the full picture in a week or even a month. Manipulators can put on a show for a while. They can be on their best behavior when they know you're paying close attention. But over time, the real them slips through. They forget to keep up the act in small moments, and that's when you catch the truth. Observation is also about noticing how you feel around him, not just when things are good, but when they're not. Do you feel safe expressing yourself, or do you hold back because you're afraid of his reaction? Do you feel valued, or do you feel like you're constantly trying to prove your worth? Sometimes the biggest red flag isn't what he's doing, it's how you're feeling as a result of it. And here's the beauty of quiet observation. He won't even see it coming. If he's expecting you to react, to argue, to chase, then your silence is going to throw him off. While he's trying to play you, you're studying the playbook. You're figuring out exactly what game he's running, and that knowledge puts you in control. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't underestimate the power of watching before acting. Let his actions show you who he is, because they always will. And once you see the truth clearly, you can decide whether to keep playing or to walk away with your dignity intact. In the end, the person who observes quietly often makes the smartest, most decisive moves because they've been paying attention while the other person thought they were in control. Ladies and gentlemen, when a man is messing with your emotions, the most powerful card you can play is showing him you can walk away. I'm not talking about threatening it every time you have an argument. I mean truly having the mindset that you will not stay where you're not valued, respected, or treated right. Because here's the thing, a man who thinks you can't live without him feels like he has the upper hand. He knows he can pull away, act distant, or play games, and you'll still be there, waiting for him to come around. That's the comfort zone he's operating from, and as long as he believes you'll never leave, he has no reason to change. But the moment he realizes that you can and will walk away if necessary, the whole game changes. It forces him to reconsider how he's treating you. Now, this isn't about using walking away as some kind of manipulation tactic. It's about genuinely knowing your worth and refusing to settle for less than you deserve. It's about understanding that your peace, your happiness, and your self-respect are worth more than holding on to someone who's constantly playing with your heart. Walking away takes strength, and that strength comes from being secure in yourself. If your confidence is built entirely on his attention or approval, you're going to feel powerless when he pulls back. But when you know you can stand on your own, you stop being afraid of losing someone who's not adding value to your life. You stop begging for the bare minimum and start demanding the treatment you deserve. And here's the beautiful part. When you have that kind of mindset, you rarely have to actually walk away. Just knowing you're willing to is enough to change the way people treat you. A man who understands you won't tolerate games will either step up or step out. Either way, you win. If he steps up, you get better treatment. If he steps out, you make space for someone who will value you the way you should be valued. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. Walking away or even preparing yourself can be one of the hardest things you'll ever do, especially when your emotions are involved. But you have to remember that staying in a situation where someone is constantly messing with your head is draining you, is stealing your energy, your joy, and your confidence. And you can't get those things back while you're still holding on to the very thing that's taking them from you. Sometimes the fear of being alone keeps people in situations they should have left a long time ago. But loneliness is not the worst thing in the world. Being with someone who makes you feel alone is. At least when you're by yourself, you have the chance to heal, to grow, and to attract something better. When you cling to the wrong person out of fear, you block the right one from ever showing up. The truth is, the power to walk away isn't about punishing someone else. It's about protecting yourself. It's about having the courage to say, I want love, but I don't want it like this. And when you carry yourself with that kind of confidence, people notice. They know you're not desperate, you're not easily swayed, and you're not afraid to put yourself first. So, ladies and gentlemen, understand this. When you can truly walk away from someone who's messing with your emotions, you shift the power dynamic entirely. You're no longer the one hoping they'll treat you right. You're the one deciding whether they're even worth your time. And that right there is how you outsmart the game completely.